I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the RTM. It's June 12th, and it is 8 o'clock on the dot. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Representative Flanagan, roll call.
Okay. Representative Abu-Lukma.
Skinny guys like me can always squeeze
Here. Representative Bryant.
Here.
Representative Amori.
Here.
Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Black.
Here.
Representative Brooks. Representative Bruno.
Here.
Representative Davis. Representative Dakovich.
Here.
Representative Flanagan's here. Representative Gernalch.
Present.
Representative Hall. Representative Hanlon.
Here.
Representative Hanson.
Here.
Representative Imperato.
Present.
Representative Ingraham.
Here.
Representative Janover.
Here.
Representative Junkus.
Present.
Representative LaRue.
Present.
Representative Maynard.
Present.
Representative Malisi. Representative Nargi.
Here.
Representative Ricchio. Representative Sandler. Representative Salvaggio.
Present.
Representative Stanlick.
Present.
Representative Sullivan's here. Representative Torelli.
Here.
Representative Toohill.
Here.
And Representative Walker. We have a quorum, so we're all set.
All right, sounds good. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. That was our minutes from May 14th, the budget meeting. Does anybody have any changes to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept the minutes as presented. Item 3, reception of communications, reports of committee, citizens, petitions. Yes. Oh, Representative Baker, yes. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Bunker, and thank you, Representative Jerome. I'd like to make a motion to make an amendment to an item on the call. It's item 20. There are two pieces missing off this item, which were voted on in committee and were part of the call in May. Okay. One of them is the town grants a conservation easement to the land trust, okay, for the property. And the other was a $40,000 transfer from contingency to the open space acquisition fund.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on amending item 20 on the call?
What are we doing now?
Item 20, there's two other pieces that were missed. There was a transfer from contingency for $40,000, and there was also the conservation easement going to the land trust.
40,000 contingency.
Yes.
And what was the other one? I'm sorry.
The other piece was the conservation easement going to the land trust.
For
Oh, David, what was the 40,000? What fund did that go into?
From
Contingency to transfer out land acquisition.
Okay.
That part appears in the minutes of May as item 27. If you have the call from May, it's item 28. Okay? This is where I'm getting this from. All right? They were voted on in committee, okay? And so I think we should just make this minor change.
Yeah.
Okay?
yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Is there any discussion on amending item 20? Hearing none, all those in favor of the changes to item 20 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 20 is amended. Thank you, Representative Baker. Okay, back to item 3, reception of communications, reports of committees, and citizens' petitions. I have one piece of communication. It's from Lori Nicholson, the chairman of the Animal Shelter Commission. On behalf of the Dan Cosgrove Animal Shelter Commission and DCAS Director Laura Bourbon, I ask that the Rules and Ordinance Committee allow the above stated to discuss and propose a town ordinance at the next R&O meeting in July. The materials have been included for your consideration, and we sincerely hope we can discuss the matter at the July 2nd, 2013 R&O meeting. And there's a bunch of attachments to that, and I will be sending this item to R&O. Representative Bruno. Yep, so you have it too. And I don't have any other communications.
Neither do I.
Okay, moving on past 3. Item 4, reports from town entities. A is report on ongoing lawsuits to recover some or all of Tabor-related expenses. I don't have anything new to report on that, except that I believe the court case is moving forward on the Marcus lawsuit, but nothing beyond that. So we can keep that on as an ongoing item, I believe. Item B is an update on the townwide facility study. I did speak with Unc about this, and we're waiting for some additional information from the Board of Ed, but there's nothing forthcoming right now, so we'll leave this on the call as well for now. Does anybody have any questions about either of those? I don't have any more information besides what I've presented. All right, so moving on from 4. Item 5, to consider and if appropriate approve a request from the Board of Fire Commissioners for the following 4 transfers in fiscal year 13. From regular wages and salaries to sick time, $51.56. From overtime to sick time for $17,000. From regular wages and salary to overtime for $36,000. And from overtime to utility personnel for $38.80. Representative Hanlon?
Yes. Thanks, Mr. Moderator. At our May 22nd meeting, Deputy Chief Heffernan, he presented and indicated that these were transfers generally out of the salaries and wages account, which had a lot of excess monies because during the fiscal year he had 4 firefighters out simultaneously, and he had a total of 110 injury or light duty days. So there was a lot of people missing for a lot of shifts. The transfer was to the sick and overtime accounts to cover those shifts. There was also a small transfer to utility personnel, who essentially are the part-timers, which they use when a shift is offered to full-time personnel and not taken. So that was a relatively small transfer there. So essentially it was to cover shifts that were missing because of, like every year, there were firemen out. So the committee unanimously approved these transfers 6-0, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Hanlon. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the transfers, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 6, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Department of Public Works Highway Supervisor for the following transfer from fiscal year 13. Regular wages and salaries to overtime for $12,000. Representative Hanlon.
Yeah, and very similar. This is actually a solid waste and recycling item, not the actual highway department per se, but at the actual solid waste department themselves, there was, again, 1 person who was out of workman's comp. This is simply the overtime they needed on, I think it was mostly on weekends. Frank, do you remember what he covered on? It was the coverage was on for Saturdays and Sundays for their shift, but it was 1 person who was out on comp and they needed overtime since they didn't want to hire another employee, basically. So anyway, the committee voted unanimously to approve these transfers 6-0, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Hanlon. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of this transfer say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, to consider and if appropriate approve the request from the Finance Director for an increase in the appropriation for the FEMA fund from $1,533,000 to $1,885,000. Representative LaRue.
Yes, we did not hear this portion of this at our regular Ways and Means meeting, but we did hear item 8, which will be the next item coming up. But we'd like to 441 it if possible, because we really did take all of that into consideration, even though it wasn't heard specifically. So I'd like to make a motion that we 441.
Okay, so a motion to waive 441?
Right.
441. Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All right, thank you, Representative Black. So the motion on the floor is to hear this item to waive Rule 441. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you, Representative Toohill.
No vote.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion is that the RTM make an increase in the appropriation for the FEMA fund from $1,553,000 to $1,885,000. And that was coming from Jim Finch, having to do with all of the expenses that have happened in the 72-hour window, et cetera. So I'd like to present that now in the form of a motion, if there's a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Representative Black, a second. All right, is there any further discussion on this appropriation of funds? Representative Toohill?
I mean, I'd just like to hear what it's about, because, I mean, I was out of state that day, I couldn't make that meeting, so I'd just like to, just give us the bare bones details, what is it for? I don't think the people at home that watched, can explain what actually FEMA is, what it means, and all that, please.
Representative Black?
Yeah. The FEMA fund, I personally don't like the name, but it's kind of our disaster fund. And, I joked with Jim Finch that, we wanted to put these things in a separate budget category when Irene hit, because it's not like we're going to get a big storm every year. And, next year when Sandy came, I apologized. I said, I owe you a big apology. Maybe we should build all this overtime into our base every year, and then we got the snowstorm. But basically, so that we segregate out those special storm-related expenses, and I know for myself, my antenna always go up when a department head comes in and says, well, because of the storm we had all this overtime, then charge it to this fund. And some of those things get reimbursed by FEMA. FEMA has specific expenses that they will reimburse up to 75% for. So the reality is that we might get reimbursed, say, 60% of the costs of a major storm. These two items here, 7 and 8, are dealing with the snowstorm, not that recent, but the snowstorm, and FEMA reimbursed 75% of reimbursable expenses for any 48-hour period that we pick. So we're actually, because we were more prepared than some other towns, we're in better shape than, say, Bridgeport. The faster you clean up and you crunch everything into those 48 hours, the better off you are. So this is increasing that general fund, and some of the monies in it will come from the state, some will come from FEMA reimbursements, some may come from insurance, and then the $100,000 appropriation that you're about to see below, that's the town share, what we anticipate. And all these things are a little fuzzy until FEMA actually goes through and says, yes, this qualifies, that doesn't, et cetera, based on their regulations. And I noticed one quizzical look, but that's the best I can do, I think.
Thank you, Representative Black. Is there any other discussion? Representative Tuhill, does that make you feel better?
Yes.
Okay. So any further discussion on item 7? Hearing none, all those in favor of this appropriation of funds say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Finance Director for the following transfer fiscal year 13. From contingency to operating transfer out FEMA, $100,000. Representative LaRue?
Yes, thank you, Representative Black, for explaining that so eloquently and simply at the same time. Yes, this is more of the same. We did hear this at our meeting on Wednesday, June 5th. There was a motion made, and it was passed unanimously, so I present that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative LaRue. Is there further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of this transfer say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Moderator, I did have one quick question. What is the contingency level left after we deal with all the transfers? I'm not even sure if we have any more after this, but.
What I do have is in the minutes from the Board of Finance on May 20th.
Okay.
That question was made, and at that point, after this transfer, the contingency balance will be $351,515.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much it's changed since
No,
then, but that's
okay,
the most
more
recent
than I
information
thought.
that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative LaRue. All right, so that motion carries. So item 8 is complete. Item 9, to consider and if appropriate, approve a request from the Public Works Director for the following transfers in fiscal year 13. From regular wages and salaries to seasonal and part-time staff, $17,000. From regular wages and salaries to overtime, $8,500. From regular wages and salaries to uniforms and clothing allowance, $1,900. From regular wages and salaries to drainage, $2,500. From regular wages and salaries to other purchased services, $20,000. From regular wages and salaries to annual sidewalks, $15,000. Representative Hanlon?
Yes, hi. At our June 11th meeting, as you can tell, all of these are transfers out of the regular.
Can I just interrupt you
Yeah.
quick? The microphones, we still have to use the handheld mics.
Oh,
I
geez.
totally
Voice
forgot
isn't
about
loud
those.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll notice all of these are from regular salaries and wages. It was predicated on the fact that there's been one employee at the transfer station and 3 normal public works director department people out for various times, one of them for quite a long time actually. So essentially the first 2 of them, the seasonal and part-time, was to bring in 3 additional seasonal workers early this year to cover some of those actual shifts. The second one is the overtime, which again was just the rest of the normal people covering the remainder of the time that wasn't covered by the part-time people. The uniform and clothing allowance, that was actually just a small increase in the contractual boot allowance. Another mechanic's uniform for a temporary mechanic, and also they've now ordered hard hats, road and rain gear and gloves and things for these new employees, so it was a small amount necessary for that. The drainage item, that was a drain pipe and catch basin on Indian Neck Avenue, which is near Paul's Wire. The other purchase services was an additional amount of money needed to complete the catch basin cleaning. As we all know, the catch basins were completely a disaster after all the storms. So they have a subcontractor called Shawvac who comes and actually cleans them for us, and the extra $20,000 was because of all the extra work that they had during the actual catch basin cleanup. And finally, the annual sidewalks, it was an additional above and beyond the normal sidewalk budget to go ahead and finish sidewalk replacement, 400 square feet on Park Place, and then another 400 square feet of the aprons on Rose Street near the construction site and near the post office. And again, because of they were aware that there were problems, and with the festival coming and a lot of people being in that area, they figured it'd be best off to just go ahead and finish those actual sidewalks. So the committee had no problem with any of these transfers. We voted unanimously 6-0 to approve them, and I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Hanlon. Is there any discussion on these transfers? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item 10. To review Chapter 11 Assessors Board of from the Code of the Town of Brantford to determine if it is consistent with applicable provisions of the Connecticut General Statutes and that any references to the same are correct and up to date, and to consider that Chapter 11 be expanded to include text from Chapter 34 of the Code of the Town of Brantford that describes the Board of Assessment Appeals and how members are appointed or elected with appropriate references to the Connecticut General Statutes. Representative Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We are continuing to work on the wording of this change in the code in the Assessors Board of from the Town of Brantford. It is about 98% finished. We're still working on the final wording of how to eliminate the Board of Assessors from the town code. We have had some correspondence with the town attorney, and his advice was that, and I quote, "We would like to expand upon our initial opinion that the town should abolish the Board of Assessors. As explained in our March 26, 2012 letter, Brantford is one of only 2 municipalities in Connecticut that still has a Board of Assessors. While boards of assessors formerly provided an important function, they were slowly replaced over time by full-time assessors. Now, due to recent changes in the law, the town's annual grand list can only be signed by an assessor who has been certified by the State Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management. The current members of the Board of Assessors are not certified and therefore cannot perform this vital function. If the town decides to keep its Board of Assessors, despite its extremely limited function, the town will also open the door to the risk of unnecessary litigation of meritless claims. Indeed, the town has already encountered difficulties as a result of its decision to maintain a Board of Assessors with individuals who are not certified to perform the actual function of an assessor. And he cites a particular case of a tax appeal, and the person making the appeal attacked the legitimacy of the town's grand list because it was not signed by all members of the Board of Assessors. Instead, as the only certified assessor, Barbara Neal was the only person who signed the grand list, and the result was a result that was entirely appropriate. Thus, although the town was in compliance with the statute, the existence of a Board of Assessors the existence of a Board of Assessors added unnecessary confusion to an already complex case. The town can and should avoid a repeat of this and similar situations by abolishing the Board of Assessors. So that is the advice that we received from the town attorney. We're working on the final wording of this to put it into the town code, and at our committee, we voted unanimously to refer this item, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Bruno. Is there any discussion on the motion to re-refer this item? Hearing none. All those in favor of re-referral, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11, to consider and if appropriate, elect to participate in the Neighborhood Assistance Tax Credit Program. Representative Torelli. And I don't know where the microphone is floating around.
The committee met to consider this item and voted unanimously to approve participation in the Neighborhood Assistance Tax Credit Program. And I put this in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Torelli. Is there any discussion on this motion? Representative Black.
Don't we have to approve specific entities? We usually do that. I know that CDR is one, and there was one other, I believe.
No, just Representative Black. Actually, the fact is just approve the participation in it is all we really need at this point. There's only 2 entities that actually have applied for it. There might be more coming, but what we need to do is just approve the actual act itself.
Thank you, Representative Flanagan. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of agreeing to participate in the Neighborhood Assistance Tax Credit Program, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 12, to consider and if appropriate review 220-9C pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 7-148 and 12-166. A fee of $2 shall be imposed on any delinquent property tax or installment thereof on any motor vehicle which delinquency has been reported to the Commissioner of Motor Vehicles of the State of Connecticut pursuant to the provisions of Section 14-33 of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended and must be paid before such tax is deemed to be satisfied. Representative Bruno.
Yes, your mayor.
Microphone's behind you.
We heard this at our June 4th meeting. I got some information from our tax collector, and she said the reason she wants to add this fee is because the state charges us for withholding registrations on delinquent taxes. In the upcoming budget, it would be almost $6,800. And she would like this fee to go towards paying that charge rather than the town being responsible for it. Other towns have been doing this. Guilford charges $2, North Branford and East Haven $3, and several towns charge $5. And she says, I probably should have made the ordinance read $3 instead of $2 because when thinking about it, it would better cover the expenses. She says, when you consider that we have to send out delinquent notices costing us paper, postage, and payroll, and then have to print releases for the taxpayer to bring to the DMV, these delinquent people are costing us money. Some towns even charge a fee to print the release, but she doesn't feel that that would be necessary. They would not charge the fee until the person is actually reported delinquent to the Department of Motor Vehicles. In our discussion in the committee, there were some questions about how long it is before a tax is considered delinquent. We wanted to get some more answers, and actually what the tax collector would think would be the better choice of a fee, whether it be 2, 3, 5, etc. So one of our committee members is going to get some more information from the tax collector. We'll report back at our next meeting, and the committee at the time voted unanimously to refer this item, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Bruno. Is there further discussion on the motion to re-refer item 12 to Arno? Hearing none. All those in favor of re-referral say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, to consider and if appropriate, create an ordinance to require a well-defined notification procedure in situations where there is a substantial increase imposed on a property in order to provide the property owner the opportunity within a reasonable period of compliance to remedy the cause for the substantial increase. Representative Savaggio.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, this agenda item, if I recall, was brought forward by Representative Grenache to address concerns about taxpayers who need, who should get adequate notification when their taxes are raised substantially. The 490 committee reviewed this over the last several months, and there is some debate about whether or not we could have created an ordinance to address this. However, the solution that the committee came up with was a resolution, which, if now is the time that's appropriate, I will read that resolution.
Go for it.
Resolution concerning notification on the change of use or classification of real property. Whereas a change in use or classification of real property can result in a significant or substantial increase in tax assessment of a property. And whereas a change in use or classification of real property can result in a significant or substantial tax increase to a property owner. And whereas real property owners may not be aware that the use or classification of their property has or will be changed as a result of a change in the level of use or activity of a property. And whereas the property owners facing such a significant or substantial increase in their property's assessment may wish to rectify the cause for the increase if they had timely notice, be it resolved that the Brantford RTM believes that it is in the public interest that real property owners should continue to receive timely notice in accordance with Connecticut general statutes of any changes in the use or classification of their properties which will result in a significant or substantial increase in the assessment of a property, and that such timely notification should allow a property owner, if they so choose, to rectify the cause for the significant or substantial increase in a property's assessment with adequate time to cure in accordance with Connecticut general statutes. And this is the resolution that came out of the committee unanimously, and I would put that before the RTM in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Savaggio. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Everybody received it in time. Representative Toohill?
Yeah. Wait, please. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think this is a good resolution. I want to thank the Public Act 490 Committee for their hard work over the last year and a half, maybe. And I think that this is good for the town. It's a good policy. It gives the open space owners that I guess had farmed the opportunity to cure the problem, and it's to tell them in advance of any big change in the from the town tax office. So I would urge you all to vote for it tonight. I think it's good for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Toohill. Representative Granolsh?
Yeah, just very briefly, I also want to let or remind people that this started off in the R&O committee, and they spent close to a year on the issue first before it was transferred to the 490 committee. I think we've had some very fruitful discussions over the time period of the 490 committee, and again, this is a resolution and it's nothing but the opinion of the full RTM, and I urge its adoption.
Thank you, Representative Granolsh. Is there any further comments? Hearing none, the motion on the floor is to approve the resolution that was presented from the 490 committee. All those in favor of approving the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution is adopted. Representative Savaggio.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to make a motion that we take this item off the call.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Is there any discussion on taking this item off the call? Representative Granolsh?
May I have the microphone? I just want to commend everyone that worked on this committee. It was quite a long process, and first with David Baker as the chairman, and
Yeah, we are.
our current chairman, Chairman Savaggio, and working with everyone that's been on the committee. It's been a long, involved thing, and I was just wondering when the party is that we're going to have, and whether the Alumni Association is forming.
Point procedure.
Yes, Representative Toohill?
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. There was another resolution that the.
Yeah, that I think we're hear that in item 14.
That's the next one.
So we're still on 13.
We're still on 13.
Yeah.
Frank.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah, no, it is here. We'll come back.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to take item 13 off of the call. Is there any further discussion? Representative Maynard?
I'm not going to get up. Just remember, people, that this particular one was also under admin for over 2 years.
That's right. That's right, that's part of it,
We
yeah.
worked hard on it.
Now we're saying.
All right, so let's call the vote. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of removing item 13 from the call, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, it's
Motion-
not 13, it's 14.
No,
13.
13.
13.
No, 13 was the resolution.
Correct, but there was nothing in the resolution saying that the item came off the call.
He added as a procedure.
It's
I think Joe just wants to really make sure this comes up again.
We're all right.
Normally, when we deal with something, it's dealt with.
14. We're gonna.
Joe just, you know,
We'll be all right.
he shot it in the back of the head, now he wants to stab it through the heart.
We're having a wait stop.
We'll be all right.
No, I,
Representative
I
Bernard.
don't
Yes.
quite understand now what's going on. I thought it was 14, the end of the 490 committee.
Well, under
We'll get
14,
there.
we're going to hear the other resolution that we still haven't heard.
Okay,
So-
but 13 doesn't need to come off. We voted and it's I see what, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize, it just dawned on me.
Light bulb.
I apologize.
No worries. All right.
I thought we solved it by this resolution, but that's okay.
The game
Good.
is over.
All right.
right.
Moving forward, item 14.
Did we pass that?
Yes, that was passed. Nobody voted no.
Okay.
So,
Yes, that passed.
So we passed to take it off, right?
Right, correct. So item 14, to receive a report from the Special PA 490 Committee, Representative Savaggio.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. This agenda item has to deal with the PA 490, which is a statute that is designed to prevent the forced conversion of open space, farmland, forest land, marine heritage land, marine heritage designations. When a landholder cannot pay or is burdened by a substantial or significant increase in their tax burden. And so the 490 Act is designed to provide some kind of buffer or relief for that designation. The 490 Committee drafted an open space resolution for the town of Brantford, and at this time I'd like to read that resolution. Whereas the open space resolution of the town of Brantford, acting through its representative town meeting. Whereas the state of Connecticut has determined that all residents benefit from the preservation of farmland, forest land, marine heritage land, and open space, having codified this finding in Connecticut General Statutes, Section 12-107A, whereas the town of Brantford has spent millions of tax dollars to acquire open space and preclude its development. Whereas high property taxes may force the development of open space lands, whereas farm, forest, and open space lands, even when taxed as farm, forest, and open space, generate more in revenue than they consume in services. Whereas farms and forests in Brantford may be at risk of losing their tax status due to inactivity or change of use from active farm or forest to open space, as farming and forestry become less economically viable, resulting in forced conversion. Whereas farms and forests, whether fully utilized or not, constitute valuable open space, whereas our current plan of conservation and development lacks an open space plan as envisioned by Connecticut General Statutes, Section 12-107E, the representative town meeting asks the Planning and Zoning Commission to adopt an open space plan that comports with Section 12-107E with strong consideration given to inclusion of all recent farm and forest land as open space, as well as any other land deemed appropriate to maintain as open space. And this resolution did pass out of committee unanimously, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Savaggio. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Representative Toohill.
Thanks again, Mr. Moderator. This is another great resolution for the town. I believe that the whole town of Guilford has this in place. Almost all the lands in Guilford are considered to be open space. That's what Guilford does. Basically what happens is when a piece of property loses its farm tax status, now in Branford, it becomes full value. It goes from like just a small percentage of its full value to full value. Open space classification is kind of a stopgap. It's in the middle. So anyway, please pass this tonight. It's good for the town. The only thing that I would bring up is what's going to happen, what's the next step? Doesn't planning and zoning have to act? Don't they have to implement this? Don't they have to put this into our code, which they have jurisdiction over? I'd like to know what's going to happen with that. This, to me, is so important. I don't want to see it just end, here at the RTM. Planning and zoning has to also now pick up the ball. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Toohill. Representative Black, it looked like you wanted to respond.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Moderator, the open space policy is really a two-part thing. The planning and zoning is supposed to have a plan of open space plan in their plan of conservation and development. We have one, but doesn't really comport certainly with the intent of the Public Act 490. What it is the plan, if you look at it in here, it has essentially government or land trust owned land as open space. It includes things like the parking lot at exit 53. Doesn't include land that we want to maintain as open space like the Kaczynski property because that was privately owned at the time. And other environmentally sensitive land that we may want to preserve. Doesn't include farms, et cetera, forest land, and we do have farm and forest land. And again, some of those things, there's activities, but that may drop off, so this would be a catch basin. The taxes would pretty much triple, but they wouldn't, or the assessment would probably triple as it goes from farm to open space. But it's less than it might be if it goes to its underlying use as residential or industrial or whatever. So after the P&Z comes up with the plan, comes to us, and we would have to approve that plan, and it can be as specific as particular parcels. And the idea being, we are more sensitive to the effect on the public fisc of wanting to preserve properties and taking them, allowing them an escape valve from the tax rules. Again, open space, you're still going to be getting more revenue than you provide for services, and certainly if you limited it to forest land and farmland, you'd actually be increasing revenue, so there wouldn't be any derogation of the public fisc. But we would get, by ordinance, after they get the proper plan in place, we enact it, and we're able to strip it down. Kind of like what we do with the budget with the Board of Finance. They send us the numbers, and we can reduce them. So we could do the same thing here if we decided it was too grandiose.
Thank you, Representative Black. Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This has a kind of a special piece to it. I would like to amend the motion to include I would like to amend the motion to include referring this to the town planner so that we're assured that planning and zoning realizes that this resolution has been put in place by the RTM, and that you would use the usual practice, which would be to give them a cover letter and a copy of the resolution, perhaps. And
definitely.
we'd for sure like to know that they received it and that that it's going. Okay.
And motion to.
So, Representative Baker, I just have a question. Would you envision that this would then be something that would be held in item 4 as a report?
Well, I was thinking about that, but
Yes.
I think probably yes. Okay. Can I get a second for this?
I'll second.
Okay. Great.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to amend, I guess, the resolution to send the resolution to the town planner and add the item to our item 4 reports from town entities. Okay, so that's the motion on the floor right now.
Mr. Moderator.
Representative Black.
Thank you. I think what we're really doing is two separate things. I mean, we have a motion here and a resolution that we've worked on, but it's really just a request to you, and whether it's a separate motion or, one part A of the motion is to pass this resolution, and part B, separate, is to ask the moderator, direct the moderator to make sure that this gets to planning and zoning by its primary staff person, who is the town planner, but I would think that it would also be addressed to the chairman of the planning and zoning, and I do think it's a good idea to keep this in that item 4 thing, so we get some feedback from planning and zoning. Is that correct,
Right.
Representative Baker? So we're not going to amend the resolution, but the motion, which is to pass this resolution, is going to have a part B to it, which is to ask you to make sure it gets to the appropriate parties.
Okay.
Because you need more to do, Chris.
Yeah, I'm not busy enough. All right, so then, so the resolution will not change from the amendment that's on the floor?
No.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Representative Brooks? No. Yes?
I had discussion on the first thing, but not on the amendment.
Oh, I'll get back to it. Let's do the amendment
Point of
first.
information,
Yep.
somebody has a green element, your lights are on. A green Honda element.
Well,
Thank you.
it's not really an amendment, it's asking us just
In case I know
some
something.
copy if we're passing to. Follow what I'm saying?
So it's actually it'll be a second motion.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
He's not amending.
So
it.
Representative Baker, we're going to handle it as a second motion.
Yeah,
Um,
you're not really amending the resolution, but you pass the resolution first.
Yeah, because just so we can go back to voting on the resolution first. So you're withdraw that until after the resolution? Okay.
Right.
All right, so I'll just clarify so everybody's up to speed. The motion that David made is going to come back up after we actually vote on the resolution. So the motion on the floor now is the adoption of the resolution as presented from the 490 committee. Representative Brooks, would you like to speak to that?
I have concerns. I'm probably the only one. I'm sorry, I'm late. I was coaching softball, so we're coaching softball. But my concern is that I feel like, and to Mr. Black's point about, there might be some picking and choosing of property. Well, then I feel like it could get a little political. For example, I have a forest, and I want it to be open space. So I want to get a tax, but I'm also trying to sell my forest for something else. I mean, there's a lot of this that concerns me. There's such a huge gray area here that you're creating. That the A and B, I also feel like we're taking stuff off. We're going to raise the taxes on people that don't have open space. That tax roll for your house will go up because we have to make up $92 million. So what, well, that's what we spend. So if right now our tax rate, we need $92 million, and you've just given a tax break to 150 acres of land, that money still has to be made somewhere. That has to be taxed somewhere, right? What am I missing there?
No, it's actually
Okay, but I have to generate $92 million to run the budget for the town, regardless. So if I give a tax break to X amount of acres, then I have to make that taxes up because I have to operate with $92 million. So where does that makeup come from, and how much money will be lost on the break is my other question.
Thank you, Representative Brooks. Representative Toohill?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Those points you raised, Representative Brooks, are good ones. We still need to decide how much to apply it to, the open space classification. This is what John Opie suggested to the public, the PA 490 committee on numerous occasions. He didn't see it like Guilford sees it. Guilford, almost the whole town has the open space designation. They don't want any development out there. They want to pay the property taxes without the industry, without the commercial, without the sewers. I mean, it's a conscious thing in Guilford. Branford's different. We still have to discuss what the actual open space, is going to be. Mr. Obie suggested that it just be used in Branford as a catch for if the properties are considered farmland, and they're taxed at the lowest rate, if they lose their farm tax status, then only those properties drop into the open space, which gives an increase in property taxes. So actually, it's not the whole, town like Guilford has. This would only be used for properties that are considered farm tax now, and if they lose the status because the owners get old or whatever. I mean, it's the purpose of Public Act 490 to preserve open space. And the way it costs now, right, with every, it's hard to provide for a family, because of the expenses. You know what I mean? You have to service the education, police, fire, waste disposal. I mean, it's cheaper in a way to preserve it as open space, and that's the purpose of Public Act 490. So I don't think there'd be any tax to make up. In fact, this would increase, the income to the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Toohill. Is there further discussions? Representative Salvaggio?
Yeah, just another point I wanted to make. If for example, if a farmer's land is put into this classification, this designation, there's a conveyance penalty for 10 years. So if they sell or develop that land within the 10-year period, there's a gradation of tax penalty that they'll incur. So it's really not placing a burden on the rest of the taxpayers, and there's a penalty if they do decide to develop that property before the 10-year conveyance is up. Before I put down the microphone, so I don't have to get back up, I do want to thank the members of the PA 490 committee. Mary Davis, Maggie Bruno, Peter Black, Richard Grenalsh, for their service and providing some insight research on this topic. I'd also like to take a special moment to acknowledge the former chairman, David Baker, for setting the tone and laying the groundwork of research for this committee's work. But more importantly, I'd like to thank many of the citizens and farmers who came to many of our meetings over the course of the PA 490 time, and who contributed and provided insight and asked questions and kept our feet to the fire in some ways. So I'd like to thank the citizens and the farmers who came to our meetings as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Salvaggio. Is there further discussion on the resolution? Hearing none. The motion is to adopt the resolution as presented from the 490 committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Representative Brooks.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Representative Baker, do you have a motion?
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure we even need a motion. We just respectfully request you to do the referral and to treat it as a referral and to add it to item 4 of the agenda. Okay?
I will do
I
so.
think it's
We don't need a motion.
No.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna just,
Yeah,
all right,
I'll just
no
do it.
motion. Yep, okay.
We don't want any more black holes.
No, it's good to get a response.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? No.
We have one more motion from the committee.
Oh, yes. Representative Salvaggio, do you have anything else?
I would like to make a motion that we take this item off the call.
Is there a second?
And there's another part, is that we're asking the moderator to essentially dissolve the TA 490 ad hoc committee and consider its business closed.
Okay. There's a second?
Wait a minute.
Salvaggio made the motion. Ginny made the second.
Oh, and I believe Ray Ingraham's going to host our party.
If we're out by 9:15.
Motion to second.
Correct.
needed.
We didn't vote yet, okay. All right, so the motion on the floor is to remove item 14 from the call. Is there any further discussion on that item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'm gonna miss the committee.
You can still meet by yourself.
That's on film.
All right, I'll change that.
Unanimous.
What's our decorum? Did I just violate our decorum?
I can't throw members out.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, no, can't do it with the members. All right, so the motion passes, the item comes off the call, and I thank the members of the 490 committee, past and present. I think you guys did a very good job over the past year and a half, and on taking all the work that had done before that, so that committee can be disbanded, and you can add some free time to your calendars. So thank you very much.
Spend it on
Yeah. Moving on to item 15. To consider and if appropriate, determine if there is a need to form a Public Works Commission. Representative Hanlon.
I'm just going to move that we re-refer this. We're actually going to take it up again in September.
Okay. So the motion is to re-refer. Is that a committee report? Do we need a second?
No, we actually didn't hear it this month.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll
to-
second it.
All right. Representative Flanagan seconded. Is there further discussion on the re-referral?
Yeah, just questions more general. Do we anticipate being here in July?
Yes. I was going to get to that in new business.
Okay, well, you said specifically September. but-
Yeah, 'cause that was
Wait till
usually-
September?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right.
Just let me make sure.
So the motion is to re-refer item 15. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16, to consider and if appropriate, conduct an examination and reevaluation of the powers, duties, and current effectiveness of the Brantford Economic Development Commission compared to those in communities similar to Brantford. Representative Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is an ongoing examination and reevaluation of the Brantford Economic Development Commission. We have had a special meeting with members of the commission. We have had a report written about that meeting, summing up what has happened and what information we have gained. Representative Bruno did pass out some information pertaining to the town of Wallingford and its Economic Development Commission. Wallingford being comparable to Brantford in demographic size, etc. And we did want to have time to read this because it was only given to us at the meeting. So we, after some discussion, there was a motion made to re-refer the item, and the committee vote was unanimous, 6-0 to re-refer. I put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Bruno. So the motion on the floor is to re-refer of item 16. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16. Item 17, to consider and if appropriate, conduct an examination of the town's policy and practice regarding the use of eminent domain. Representative Torelli?
The committee is still considering this item and voted to re-refer, and I put this in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Torelli. Is there any further discussion on the motion to re-refer item 17? Hearing none, all those in favor of re-referral say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18, to consider and if appropriate, approve changes to the Town of Brantford floodplain management ordinance. This was sent to R&O. Representative Bruno?
We heard this at our meeting. We did hear from Representative Brooks, and I would like to hand the microphone to him to explain his position on this.
So this is something that we'd like to take our time and really make sure that we do it. I don't want to say properly. Let's make sure that that we can compromise to a point where it's favorable to everyone, both the homeowners, the town, and other taxpayers. It sounds like there are two parts to this ordinance which have to be examined. One is the improvements, just basic improvements to your home, and one is stuff that's done from damages for storms. The damages from storms is something that is kind of controlled by FEMA, so that piece may stay the same. The piece of improvements is a town policy that some changes can and may be made on. What exactly those changes will be, it's hard to say as of yet. So I've been meeting with Janice Plasiak and the building department, and we'll also be speaking with hopefully somebody from the DP as well as some people from other towns, and hopefully, as moving forward, we can come up with a solution. But again, this isn't a time-sensitive thing, because the reality is, even before it was a year, you're still not out of a year window from a lot of the major damage, which was Sandy. So even if you change it now, it wouldn't affect those people going forward. So we have plenty of time to kind of go forward with that situation. So we will.
Thank you, Representative Brooks.
And based on the report from Representative Brooks, the committee motion to refer the item, the vote was unanimous 6-0, and I would like to put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you. So the motion is to refer item 18. Is there further discussion? Representative Hansen?
At last month's meeting, I had
Yeah, wait, it's for the TV. It's not.
at last month's meeting, Representative Brooks had made the point to a motion to reconsider. Procedurally, I had questioned that during this past month as the Robert's rules. It wouldn't necessarily be a motion to reconsider. It would be a motion to amend something previously adopted, and it is possible to do what Representative Brooks is looking to do.
Excellent. Thank you for that research, Representative Hansen. All right, so the motion is to refer to, you didn't vote on it yet, did you? No. Okay. Any other further discussion? All those in favor of referral, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, to consider and if appropriate, insert a new section of Chapter 38 Ethics Code of the Brantford Code. Representative Bruno?
Yes.
You want to just pass it down?
Thank you. Yes, I would like to turn this over to Representative Baker, because he has information on this, and I'd like to present it.
Where we are with this is, Ray and I are planning to meet with the Board of Ethics, and we're waiting for them to provide us a meeting date. They did have a meeting, they did have a discussion of our proposal, and the chairman, Attorney Edmonds, told me a little bit about the things they wanted to change. One of the items in there is apparently redundant with the code they already had, and there was some wording that they felt was a little too open-ended in one of the other items. So it doesn't sound too significant, but we are waiting to hear from them as to when the next meeting is. After we do that, we will, hopefully, in the meeting, we will make changes to our proposal, make compromises and so forth. We'll bring that to the R&O committee for approval, and then it'll come here hopefully. So we're very positive. I think it's going to work.
Excellent. Representative Baker, just as a point of information, when you set that date with the Board of Ethics, can you send it to the body in case any other members would like to go?
Oh, sure. Yeah. They don't publish their meeting times,
Oh.
so I'm not sure.
Okay, well,
But I
check
will
into
check that with them.
Legally, they have to.
All right. So,
Can I say something, Chris?
yeah.
The Board of Ethics meets as needed.
Oh, okay.
Some of the boards that don't have regular meetings, and they put.
So they don't have to publish it.
They're in the books as, we will meet as needed, all will be special.
Yeah, okay. So they would still give was it 24-hour notice for a special? Yeah.
I did just want to add that this a new section of the Code of Ethics is basically a code of conduct, and has to deal with elected officials, public officials, actions actions and responsibilities and that type of thing. So we don't have one of this point in our code, so this is what is being asked to be inserted. Because we are still looking into this and dealing with the Board of Ethics, we would like to make a motion to refer this item. The committee vote was 6-0 to do so, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Bruno. So the motion is to re-refer this item. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of a re-referral, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 20. This is our amended agenda item. To consider and if appropriate, approve the recommendation of the Board of Finance to appropriate $330,276 in the Land Acquisition Fund for the purchase of the Kaczynski property, along with a transfer from contingency of $40,000 to the Land Acquisition Fund and a conservation easement going to the Branford Land Trust. That covers the amendments that we made at the beginning. And I believe this was a joint meeting between Ways and Means and Admin. I don't know who wants to report on it first, or?
Start?
Okay, thank you, Representative LaRue.
All right, sure. We heard this at our meeting on Wednesday, June 5th. We heard a great presentation from Mr. Horn, who's present here in case we have any questions for him. A number of us had already walked that tract of land, which we found very helpful to be able to really see something ourselves. It's a beautiful piece of land, and I think it would be a wonderful asset for the town to be able to save that piece of land. We heard it, we approved the appropriation, we moved that the RTM approves the appropriation of $330,276 in the Land Acquisition Fund, including a transfer of $40,000 out of contingency into transfer out land acquisition. We heard that jointly with admin, and I'll pass the mic on, and we approved it unanimously, and I present it in a form of a motion from us. Okay, from there.
The committee met jointly with Ways and Means to consider this item and voted 5-1 to approve the recommendation of the Board of Finance to appropriate $330,276 in the Land Acquisition Fund for the purchase of the Kaczynski property and a grant of conservation easement, and I put this in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Representative Torelli. Is there further discussion on item 20, the approval of funds, the transfer from contingency, and the granting of the conservation easement? Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd just like to rise and with complete support for appropriating these monies to acquire the Kaczynski property for two reasons. I grew up in the Short Beach area, and I remember as a child going out on those trolley tracks, and my friends and I, we called it the second bridge, and we'd spend time fishing and crabbing. And I always noticed, even as a kid, looking over the river and the marshland at that beautiful green rolling hill, and I really think that it's one of the nicest properties in Branford. And to acquire this and have it go over to the Land Trust, we're going to preserve this forever. And for the second reason is that I reside in the 4th District, and we have Branford Point in the 4th District, which is a great place. My family is very fond of it. However, it is on the outskirts of the 4th District, and the Kaczynski property is very centrally located. And I think that by acquiring this property, it's going to give the good majority of the citizens of the Branford Hills area the opportunity to use this property to go down and either bird watch or walk, or just to simply sit and enjoy the property. And again, I support this 150%, and I hope the rest of my colleagues will as well.
Thank you, Representative Hansen. Is there further discussion? Representative Black?
Yeah, just for technical correction, this is not going to be land trust property. This is going to be town-owned property with the town responsible for the maintenance of it. The land trust is getting an easement in return for a $25,000 contribution to the purchase price. But this is going to be town-owned, town-managed property. Perhaps sometimes we can, in the future, we can link it with the Beacon Hill property, which is also town-owned. It'll be one large property.
Thank you, Representative Black. I'll get Representative Tuho.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To add to the comments made by Representative Hansen, it is a beautiful piece of property. The RTM had a tour that Mr. Horn gave us, and it's just a beautiful, it's a magnificent piece. This is a great use of the open space cash that we get from the operation of the quarry in Stony Creek. Access to the public, I mean, this is going to be public land and the public should use it, and I believe there's going to be, or could be, a small parking area created at the end of Helen Road, and there's going to be 2 spaces created at the end of a private road as well. The property adjoins a property owned by the Branford Land Trust, and as we just heard from Representative Black, it is close to Beacon Hill, which is, I believe, state-owned, which is also a fantastic piece. And it overlooks the Branford Trolley Museum. You can actually see the trolley cars going by, and it's a nice blend of land. It's uplands with forest. It's a tidal wetland as well. So, and it's fields too. So it's just a beautiful piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Toohill. Mr. Horn, I believe you want to make a comment. Just please come up to the front tables for the microphone. I don't think he needs ours. I think he can just the one that's on the table there picking on.
Just as a point of information to clarify ownership, Beacon Hill is actually owned by the state. The purchase, the state put up over half the purchase price. The town put up a significant portion of the balance, and the land trust contributed $100,000. So it's owned by the state, the land trust, and the town both have conservation easements on it. Okay. With regard to some of the things that Mr. Toohill said, I should say that there's been no specific discussion of management features such as parking. A condition of the state grant is that it is open for public access. So Parks and Open Space will be determining what the best way is to make that access possible. My understanding from conversations with the chair of Parks and Open Space is that they do want to find a way that it'll be accessible to people who live further away than walking distance from the property. So we anticipate that there would be parking developed for a small number of cars. We also want to respect the fact that the neighbors on the road, it is a private way, and there has been some concern voiced. There were rumors that the town was going to widen the road to 50 feet and put in a large parking lot. There has been no discussion of anything on that scale.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarifications. Representative Morey?
I want to rise in support of this. From the 4th District, I grew up there, and it was, thank you. I grew up there, and the 4th District is an interesting place because it's had an enormous amount of residential development. And this is going to be very important, I think, thing to help the district keep some of the rural character that it had when I was a kid, and to keep it from further development. So I just am thrilled for our district, and I'm thrilled with the outcome. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Morey. Representative Baker?
Thank you.
Can you guys pass the mic down?
I too am very much in favor of this acquisition. I'm rising as a point of procedure. Representative LaRue made a motion and it was seconded. We did not vote on it. And then you called on Representative Borelli and she made a motion and got seconded. So this is an important thing, and I think we've got to make sure that the procedure is followed properly. So let's vote on the first motion and then we'll vote on the second one. We can't vote on 2 motions at one time.
It's both committees. The reason you did that, both committees. So yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So we can vote on the 2 pieces.
You can vote on the 2 pieces?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I went to 2 committees, that's why it was
Okay.
called that way.
I'm fine with that. I just was concerned.
No.
Why?
Oh, easy there, Representative. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving expending these funds and the granting the conservation easement and the transfer, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 21, to consider and if appropriate, approve the recommendation of the Board of Finance to increase the total appropriation for the fiscal year 2012-2013 Open Space Fund budget from $58,546 to $186,322. Representative LaRue.
Yes, that was heard as part of the same discussion that we've just gone through on our June 5th meeting. And I'd just like to add one point, that it's not something that we can definitely count on, but Mr. Horn has indicated that, in his words, there are better than an even chance that the town will get money, possibly up to $50,000 from grants that might be able to replace some of that money that's come out from the land acquisition fund. So we'll have to see at that point whether we want to bring back some of that to contingency or have it in the acquisition funds at that time. But anyway, this motion passed unanimously, and I present that in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative LaRue. Is there further discussion in this recommended approval of funds? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 22, any other new business to come before the RTM? Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. We all received copies of this, of a resolution to approve commercial, it's a state program, commercial property assessment, clean energy. It's called CPACE for short. Now, we're, the RTM being asked to approve this resolution, and then the first selectman and others would go ahead and make the agreement to do this program. Now, I think we'll have adequate discussion. You've all had copies of this. It's quite late. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to have this referred to committee.
Okay.
And so if we have to add it to the, whatever the formal thing here is, to add it to the,
yeah,
and then you please refer it to
I can just send it to admin services as the committee.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate, given it's the first selectman.
Yep.
Just point of information,
Yes.
was that not a time-sensitive situation?
It is not
There was
time-sensitive.
Some businesses waiting on that?
There are businesses that are waiting on, they want to get involved in the program, but it's nothing that we don't start the ball rolling. They can't get involved in the program just because we would agree on it tonight.
This is what you sent out?
Yes,
Okay.
this is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're sending it to RO? I mean,
No, admin services.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Representative Baker. Representative Toohill?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I received some emails from First District Brantford residents, and I told them I would ask tonight, and this I think this item should go on number 4. It's about the senior center. First Selectman Dr. Ross, I believe, told us that after the swap, I guess, was basically dropped, then there could be some other plans forthcoming. So I'd just like to know if there's any plans, because the seniors, you know, that I heard from over there, they expect something else, some other proposal to come forward. So, thank you.
Representative Iowa draft a letter for Selectman Dross. Yeah, it'll go under item 4 then.
Okay.
So 4 is just tracking, so I don't lose things, and we don't lose things as a body.
You got it.
Motion to adjourn.
Can I? That's too late. The motion's on the floor.
I'll withdraw it.
Okay. I was just going to announce the intent to have a special meeting in July. Yeah, well, because we don't have to have one. And my intentions are to have it on the second Wednesday, which is July 10th. So it's our normal meeting date. There's some bonds that need to be authorized that the Board of Finance hasn't heard. It sounds like we might be able to pick up a couple of other items at that meeting.
It's close enough to my birthday, I expect.
Will you bake it?
Will I bake it? You don't want it.
special RTM.
Yeah, that's my intent, that'll be the
We're gonna do
10th.
just the bonding that night, just a special meeting, just.
It'll be a special, it won't be a full agenda, but there might be a couple other things that we can pick up. So that's it. So I just wanted to make that announcement so everybody gets it on their calendars. And if the date changes, I'll let everybody know. Rosenblack, do you have a motion?
A motion to adjourn.
Second. Oh,
I just have an announcement.
No, it's too late, it's too late.
I just want to ask us as a body and the town as a whole that with all the storms and the flooding that's going on, help your neighbors that need the help. The ones that can't manage their basements, can't manage those things, help those people manage those things.
thank you, Representative Brooks. The motion is to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned.
See you at the festival.
Ray, we made